It's no secret that our royal family has Germanic ancestry. Indeed, Queen Victoria married Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. As a result of this, his German titles were handed down to the descendants of their youngest son, Prince Leopold, Duke of Albany, and the Duke of Cumberland had inherited through the laws that prevented it going to Queen Victoria, the Elector of Hanover, the Kingdom of Hanover. So the German antecedents of our family is well known. It was all fine until the First World War began, when we had the odd situation in which British princes were officers in the German army fighting against the Allies. Ultimately, Parliament passed the Titles Deprivation Act in 1917, 3 years into the war, which enabled Parliament, actually the Privy Council, to revoke the prince's titles. Now, in a twist to this, it seems the Titles Deprivation Act could be amended to revoke the Duke and Duchesses of Sussex titles in what has been dubbed the nuclear option by the MP behind the bill, Bob Seeley. This comes after the scandalous week in which the odious blighter Scobie supposedly accidentally revealed the names of the alleged royal racists in the Dutch translation of his book. Well, I'm joined now by the greatest expert available on this, the royal biographer and commentator, Angela Levin. Angela, thank you so much for joining me. I've been waiting to get you on my programme
because
you're regular for GB News. So, the Duke of Albany, the Duke of Cumberland and his son, and Viscount Taaffe had their titles taken away by the Titles Deprivation Act because they were fighting for the enemy, they were on the enemy's side in a war. They were arguably traitors, though not necessarily, because some of them had been in Germany or Austria their whole lives. This really isn't the case for the Duke of Sussex. It's overkill, isn't it?
Yes, it's not going to work anyway because, as you know more than me, that there's only 20 people who can give an idea that they would like to take through, but he's not in that, so there's not really any time to do it. But the other way, I don't think everybody's going to vote for that. It seems a very old-fashioned thing to do, and I don't think that King Charles will have anything to do with it either. I think he's in a terrible position. But I think, like a lot of parents who have wayward children, that you love the child, but you hate what they're doing. And I think because Meghan is so dramatic and unpredictable, and he is so crushed, that actually the door is always open for him.
To come back.
To come back.
And that's probably true of the country at large, isn't it? That if he were to come back, it would be like the prodigal son, and that the country would go out to welcome him, as long as he came back in the way the prodigal son did, with humility and asking the nation to take him back into their arms.
I think it will be very hard for him to get the nation to like him. I think because of what he said about his father and the lies he's told, I think he's remembered everything from a small age when William got one more sausage than him, and he's very annoyed about it. But, you know, all those tiny little things that annoyed him have grown enormously over time, and I think he won't be able to change back into the lovely Harry. When I interviewed him for my biography of him, he was charming, he was wonderful with people, and really happy, although he had said he'd like to move on, but he wanted to stay there for the Queen. But I think it would take a long time for us Brits to forgive him how he's been so awful about his parent and his brother and sister-in-law.
But shouldn't those of us, like the two of us, who love the monarchy and everything that it stands for, want to be generous and not vindictive, and therefore we don't actually want to take his title away? We regret that he's behaving like this and that these stories are coming out, but we don't want to add fuel to the fire. We want things to calm down, and that requires a degree of generosity.
Yes, I think that's absolutely right, but I think there's a big difference between an act of generosity and what you feel in your heart when somebody has really hurt someone that you respect and care about and you think work very hard.
Yes, and that must, as you say, be difficult for the King, which is where the Royal Titles Deprivation Act is not the right way to go, because that ultimately would go to the Privy Council, which the King is present at. And I think to ask the King to take away his own son's title would be monstrously unfair. It would be quite a cruel thing to do to the King.
Yes, it would be. But we've also got, as an example of the King's decision-making, is the Councillors of State. Usually there's 4 in order in the hierarchy, and if the the king or the queen is ill or they're away, they can sign documents and stand in their place. But because of what Harry has done, there are two more. Princess Anne and Prince Edward came in, so that you only need 4, so that Harry would not be involved anymore. But it's a gentle one. It wasn't cruel.
Well,
it didn't send him back.
It was very important. I was, for a time, president of the council and was very conscious that we didn't have enough councillors of state who were available because the Duke of Edinburgh had got too old and had retired. The Duke of York was absent for obvious reasons. The Duke of Sussex was going abroad. And therefore, what were you going to do if the late Queen was incapacitated? And this has made a safety valve for the Constitution to ensure business can always be carried on.
Yes, I mean, but he hasn't wanted to actually... A lot of people wanted to get rid of Harry entirely.
He's left on the list.
But he's left on the list, but won't necessarily be used. But it worries me, actually, because he is, you know, 6th to the throne, but 5th to the throne now. But there's children before him.
Yes.
And King Charles is quite old, and also, if anything, God forbid, happened to William, you know, we've got a terrible problem there.
Well, may the King live
think about it.
forever, as we always say. Thank you very much, Angela.